I've been a tracker for over 30 years. My grandpa taught me, his grandpa taught him, and so on. We have a saying in our family: people lie, but the ground always tells the truth. I've tracked lost hikers, escaped criminals, and animals you wouldn't believe exist. I've seen it all, or so I thought. This one time, a few years back, I was deep in the Bitterroot National Forest, miles from any marked trail. It was late fall, the air was crisp, and the ground was soft from a recent rain-perfect conditions for tracking. That's when I found them. A single set of footprints heading deeper into the wilderness. They were fresh, maybe only a few hours old. This was strange. No one should have been out this far, not without gear, and these prints were from bare feet. My first thought was a lost child or someone in serious trouble, so I started following, but right away something felt off. The stride was unnaturally perfect. Each step was the exact same distance apart, a flawless rhythmic pattern that no human, no matter how trained, could maintain over rough terrain. It was too precise, too clean. As I pushed on, the woods began to change. You know how a forest is always alive with sound? The chatter of squirrels, the call of birds, the rustle of leaves. Well, all of it just stopped. The silence was so complete it felt heavy, like a blanket smothering everything. Even my own senses, the ones I've trusted my entire life, started to feel dull and unreliable. A deep, primal part of my brain was screaming at me to turn back, but my pride, my professionalism wouldn't let me. I had to know who or what was making these tracks. Then I got that feeling, the one where the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, the unmistakable sensation of being watched. I'd catch a flicker of movement out of the corner of my eye, a shadow shifting behind a thick pine, but whenever I spun around, there was nothing, just the silent, waiting trees. The feeling grew stronger with every step I took, a constant, oppressive presence just beyond my sight. I started checking over my shoulder more and more, my hand resting on the knife at my belt. The trail became even more bizarre. The footprints led straight up a sheer rock face, a climb that would have required ropes and gear, yet the prints were pressed into the stone as if it were soft mud. They crossed a wide, fast-moving creek without a single displaced pebble on the other side. It was impossible. No animal, no person could move like this. It was breaking all the rules of nature, of physics. The logical part of my brain was short-circuiting, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. And that's when my blood ran cold. I happened to glance back to check my own trail, and I saw it. A second set of prints. They were identical to the ones I was following, but they were behind me. They were following my own boot prints, stepping exactly where I had stepped. My mind reeled. I wasn't the hunter. I was the prey. All this time I thought I was tracking something, but it had been luring me, drawing me deeper into its territory, while another one stalked me from behind. With a jolt of pure terror, I looked ahead. The original set of tracks, the ones I'd been following for hours, stopped. They didn't vanish or lead off. They just turned around. Two bare footprints, side by side, facing directly back at me, as if the creature had stopped and was patiently waiting for me to arrive. I was caught between them. In that moment, every rule I had ever lived by went out the window. I didn't try to hide my trail. I didn't move silently. I just ran. I crashed through the undergrowth, branches whipping my face, my lungs burning, not daring to look back. I made it out of the forest as night fell and didn't stop until I locked the door of my cabin behind me. For days I was a wreck, jumping at every sound. I told myself it was just the forest playing tricks on me, that I was overtired. Then, one morning, I stepped outside to get firewood. And there in the soft dirt right by my doorstep were two fresh, bare footprints, perfectly formed, waiting. It hadn't stayed in the forest. It had followed me home. And I knew, with a certainty that chilled me to my very soul, that I would never truly be alone again. Thanks for listening. If you like stories that keep you up at night, be sure to follow for more. I've spent my life in the deep wilderness, tracking everything from lost hikers to mountain lions. People call me when something goes missing in a place no one else dares to go. I'm not the type to get spooked. I'm logical. I follow the signs, and I always find what I'm looking for. Until last fall. The call was unusual from the start. A rancher on the edge of a massive, uncharted forest had been losing livestock. Not just one or two sheep, but full-grown cattle dragged off into the trees. He swore the tracks left behind weren't from a bear or a wolf. He was right. When I got there, I saw the prints myself. At first glance, they looked almost human, but the details were all wrong. The stride was immense, nearly double what a tall man could manage. The toes were too long, and they dug into the earth like claws. And the strangest part? The pattern switched. Sometimes it was 2 feet upright. Other times it was 4, like it was crawling on all fours, moving with impossible speed. I'd never seen anything like it, but a job's a job. I packed my gear and headed into the woods, expecting to solve this mystery in a day or two. The first hour on the trail was normal. Birds chirping, squirrels chattering, the usual sounds of a living forest. Then silence. It wasn't a gradual quiet. It was like a switch was flipped. The air grew heavy and still. Every step I took seemed to echo in the emptiness. It felt like the entire forest was holding its breath, watching me. I've been in the woods my whole life, but I'd never felt this kind of oppressive silence. It was the feeling of being an intruder in a place that didn't want me there. My instincts were screaming that I was walking into a trap, but the tracks were clear, leading me deeper. As I followed, I started noticing things that made the hairs on my neck stand up. This wasn't just an animal. It was smart. I'd set a few simple snares along the path ahead, just to see what would happen. The tracks would lead right up to them, stop, and then detour in a wide, perfect circle before rejoining the path on the other side. It knew. It crossed a shallow river 3 times in less than a mile, a classic technique to mask a scent trail. At one point, the tracks doubled back on themselves, making a loop behind my position. It was checking its own back trail. It wasn't just running. It was thinking, planning. It was playing a game with me. That's when I saw it. Just a glimpse through a thicket of birch trees. A figure, pale and impossibly tall, was standing perfectly still, its limbs longer than they should be. It was watching the trail, but not looking at me. Then it bent backwards, its spine curving at an angle that would snap a human's. It moved with a jerky, unnatural grace and then vanished back into the shadows. My blood ran cold. This was no animal. This was something else entirely, and the worst realization began to sink in. I noticed its tracks started to change. It was mimicking my gait, trying to match my pace. It wasn't just watching me. It was learning from me. I decided to turn back. This was beyond a simple tracking job. As I retraced my steps, a new sense of dread washed over me. There, pressed into the mud right next to my own boot prints, were fresh tracks. The long clawed toes, the impossible stride, they were behind me now. It had circled around. The hunt was reversed. I was no longer the tracker. I was the prey. I started moving faster, not quite running, but with a purpose I hadn't felt before. I just wanted to get out of those woods. As the sun began to set, casting long, twisted shadows, I saw one final chilling piece of evidence. A handprint pressed into the bark of an old oak tree. It was a good 12 feet off the ground, far higher than any person could reach. And it had 6 fingers. I don't remember much of the escape, just a blind, panicked run through the dark until I burst out of the tree line and back onto the rancher's land. I told him to sell his property and leave. I didn't give him all the details. How could I? He'd think I was crazy. I drove home, locked my doors, and tried to forget what I saw. But a few nights later, I woke up to my dog growling at the back door. I went to the window, and in the faint moonlight, I saw them, muddy footprints on my back porch. The same long toes, the same impossible stride. I don't know what it is or what it wants. All I know is that I found something in those woods, and now it's found me too. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like and subscribe for more. Stay safe out there. They called him the Tracker. Give him a single footprint, a broken twig, and he could follow a trail for 100 miles through the densest, most dangerous forests. He had a reputation for never losing a trail, for seeing things no one else could. He was the best, and he knew it. But one autumn morning, he found a set of tracks that would change everything. He was deep in the northern woods, a place most people avoided. The tracks he found looked human at first glance. But as he knelt, he saw they were all wrong. The prints were pressed too deep into the hard soil, as if the person weighed a ton. The stride was uneven, one foot landing far ahead of the other, a lurching, unnatural gait. And they were in a part of the forest where no person should be. There were no roads for miles, no reason for anyone to be out here. As he began to follow, a strange quiet fell over the forest. The usual chorus of birdsong went silent. The wind died down, and the leaves on the trees hung perfectly still. It felt heavy, like the air before a thunderstorm. And then he got the feeling, a prickle on the back of his neck, the undeniable sensation that he was being watched. He'd felt it before when tracking predators, but this was different. This felt intelligent, malicious. He kept his eyes on the trail, trying to ignore the feeling. The tracks led in through thorny thickets and over rocky ridges. Then something impossible happened. The tracks made a sudden 90-degree turn, straight up a steep, muddy embankment where no human could keep their footing. He scanned the area, trying to make sense of it. Then he saw them again. The tracks reappeared about 50 yards behind him, as if whatever made them had simply vanished and rematerialized. His instincts, honed by years in the wild, were screaming at him to turn back. Every nerve in his body told him this was wrong. But his pride, his reputation as the tracker who never quit, pushed him forward. There had to be a logical explanation. There was always a logical explanation. He just had to find it. So against his better judgment, he continued. The sun started to dip lower, casting long, distorted shadows through the trees. Out of the corner of his eye he caught movement, a tall, dark shape slipping between the ancient oaks. It was gone in a flash. Too fast, too tall, and its silhouette wasn't quite human. His heart hammered against his ribs. He wasn't just tracking something anymore. He was being observed, maybe even toyed with. He pressed on, his pace quickening. He rounded a large boulder and stopped dead. The tracks were no longer leading him forward. They were circling. He stood in the center of a perfect, freshly made ring of those same deep, lurching footprints. It had been walking around him. He realized with a jolt of ice-cold fear that he wasn't the hunter. He was the prey. He spun around, searching for a way out, and that's when he saw the final, terrifying discovery. There, mixed in with the strange tracks circling him, were his own footprints. A perfect set of his own boot prints, leading into the circle and stopping. But he had never walked there. He was standing right here. He hadn't moved. Something had copied his tracks perfectly. That was it. Logic was gone. Reason had fled. All that was left was pure, primal terror. He didn't hesitate. He ran. He didn't look back, didn't care about the branches whipping his face or the rocks tearing at his boots. He just ran, fueled by adrenaline and the horrifying image of his own footprints where they shouldn't be. He burst out of the tree line just as the last sliver of sun disappeared, collapsing onto the familiar dirt road, gasping for air. He made it home, but the man they called the tracker never really returned. He never set foot in a forest again. He sold his gear, refused every job. People said he woke up screaming from nightmares, staring at the corners of his room. He'd sit for hours by the window, watching the edge of the woods behind his house, because he knew with a certainty that chilled him to his core that whatever he was tracking in that forest had followed him home, and it was just waiting. Thanks for watching.